So it's time for us to talk about our healing. It's time for us to talk about the stuff that we went through, and it's also the time for us to start showing up for each other, as well as for our fellow peers as well. And I think so. We're in a crazy time where a lot of things are happening right now, and I think there's no better time than now to really stand alongside each other.
Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Podcast, where soulful entrepreneurship and holistic mind-body wellness meet to help you heal, discover your soul's purpose, and change the world. I'm your host, Gabby Ortega, entrepreneur, psychology expert, social media maven, and soulful leadership coach. And it's my mission to empower you into becoming the light leader you're meant to be. Each episode will be diving deep into topics that will help you gain personal mastery over your healing and mind-body wellness, while also giving you practical tips and tools to help you create, market, and scale a heart-centered business around your soul's purpose and life mission. Whether you're in the beginning of your self-awakening journey or a seasoned inner work god or goddess who's ready to step into their leadership as a soulpreneur, this is going to be your new favorite place to be. We know that you don't just want to feel happier and more fulfilled, but you want to deeply know yourself and powerfully step into your life's purpose while creating massive abundance around your mission. That's why I've created this podcast for you, the light leader of the next generation. Welcome home. I'm so glad you're here. Hi guys, welcome back to the Conscious Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Gabby Ortega, and today I have brought on one of my really dear friends and actually someone who I'm getting my doctoral degree with, Danny Pimentel. He is a amazing human being who's the owner and founder of Halcyon Days coaching. He's also getting his PsyD degree with me, and he focuses on helping humans recover from anxiety and trauma while helping them own their sexual identity. And he specifically works on men's mental health and in the realm of conscious men. So I'm super excited to have him on here and to hear all about his journey and his self-healing experience. So welcome, Danny.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
I am so excited to have you. Something that we bonded about like right away was like that we were trauma survivors. I think like in the first week of our doctoral program, we went around and introduced ourselves. And like this is very typical of a therapist program. Instead of just like your name and where you're from, it's like, what's your name? Where are you from? And like, what's your trauma? I feel like in my master's program and in our program, we like kind of just like, we dive in because we know that there's something, we don't come from like the most perfect homes if we're going to school for therapy. So we definitely bonded over the fact that we are both self-healers. We are both people who approached the mental health field from a space of where we were coming from and what was going on for us, and kind of hitting our own personal lows and really coming from a place of wanting to heal ourselves and then spread that healing to other people who might be experiencing something similar to our journey. So I just love and honor you so much, Danny, because you have done tremendous self-healing work. And now you are, you know, a clinician and a coach working with men to help them through their own journeys and trauma. And yeah, I would just love if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your story and your self-healing journey with our audience.
Yes. First, I love being here, and I think my journey has been very up and down. But what I've learned so much is that I I think I wouldn't be where I am. I think so. The time we met in class, it was just like I felt connected, and I think so with my trauma, I always realized that it brought me closer to other people. And the way it started is that I unfortunately was a victim of sexual abuse for I started when I was 5, and it was with one of my brother's closest friends. He ended up touching me inappropriately, ended up being the thing that he's just been. I was just a victim from his abuse since I was from 15 to probably around 16 years old, probably a little bit later than that. In that process, I also had 2 other instances with 2 other people as well. Um, and I was bullied severely for my sexuality or the assumption of my sexuality, and I had to endure a lot of uh, eating disorder, and then my anxiety and depression started kicking in, but it ended up kicking in a way where I it felt it my type of sadness was the type where I couldn't say it out loud because I was afraid. It was more fearful for me to say it out loud than it was to actually, have someone to talk to me or support me, because I think so we were conditioned. I was conditioned at a very young age. You're a man, you're a boy, you don't cry for things. And it would made it more apparent at a time where um, being gay was uh, probably the worst sin you could ever do. You could cheat
Yeah.
on somebody, you could beat on somebody, but being gay was something was not great. And I think
Mm.
so. I grew up in an environment where if you talk about your feelings, that means you're gay.
Yeah, wow. And that's something that we see with, now we're talking about it. We have a term, called toxic masculinity, which is this idea that, um, men from a young age are very conditioned by family, by culture, by society, to not have feelings, to hold everything in, to quote unquote, like you said, be a man. And I think in many ways, like that has perpetuated a lot of, you know, violence and sexual violence and just expression of normal feelings in really non-productive ways, and that leads to self-destruction and all kinds of things. And I think we need to really open up the space and stop with this dialogue of men should be XYZ, the same as we're stopping the dialogue of women should be XYZ, because that just leads to so much suffering.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like what made it harder to me at this stage of my life was that didn't have anybody who was part of the LGBTQ plus community at the time that I could rely on. My culture, I'm half Mexican, half Salvadorian, and there's a lot of machismo in my family.
Mm.
I grew up with a lot of gang members, gang violence in my family, and it was a lot of um, there was always a lot of trauma on top of trauma that I didn't even know where to start. And I think
Yeah.
so. I was in this kind of survivor mode all the time, trying to find a way to hold myself together. And I think for myself, it was um, trying to find an outlet that would allow me to um, express myself in a way that I can do it myself.
Mm.
Because I felt at that time a lot of the issues that I was dealing with was issues that was primarily dealt with women.
Mm.
eating
Yeah.
disorder, eating disorders, sexual trauma, um, and with the addition of uh, bullying, and actually was part of a church too. And I had people from the church actually did a little bit more spiritual abuse with myself.
Oh, wow.
It really messed with my head. It messed with my self-esteem. I ended up being I was so focused on my physique that I ended up losing so much weight because of my abuse and the bullying, that ended up going to a size medium at American Eagle, which
Oh
is
my
extremely
God.
that's extremely small.
Yes, that is really, really small. Wow.
And I look at photos now, and I recall thinking I remember looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, wow, you're so big. And that's what everybody always told me: you're so big, you're so stupid. I used to live with my Uh, I lost my home when I was 16, and I was bouncing from couch to couch. And when the people that I was living with, they would get drunk, they would wake me up, and they just make fun of me.
Oh my God. Wow. So there was really
And
like no safe space for you from the time that you were very little, even up until probably like when? When did you feel like there was a safe place for you?
college.
College. Wow. Wow. So you were hopping around couch to couch after experiencing, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, spiritual abuse, so many different things happening with your family. Wow. I am just floored. I thought I knew most of it, but this is just putting everything into a whole other perspective. So thank you for sharing all of this with us. So what happened next?
Um, I didn't realize. uh, the effects that everything had on me until like in the middle of my college career, where the people that I was dating, or that's when I started exploring my sexuality, I ended up being that type of person who always attracted down low of people who are in the closet, not really in the closet, and
Mm.
they only wanted me in at a certain time in a certain space, and I was content with that because I convinced myself that's all I deserve, because any attention that I ever gotten was normally negative. And
Mm.
I got into the cycle of realizing that my self-worth was based on other people's opinion. And tried to uphold an image where I was secure. I've always that best friend that had the answers of everything. I always seemed like I had it held together,
Yeah.
and I never asked for help. And I think so. It was one instance where in college, I never actually had any of my friends see me in a relationship. But when I actually had my first breakup, that was the first time I just knocked on my friend's door and just started crying. And the support that I received from her at that time was I put my emotions out there for the very first time, and it was received really well, and I felt at home. Where
Mm.
I took my pain, and I went over to my friend's house and I gave that trust to her, and I laid it out there, and I was super
Wow.
grateful for that moment because that was the catalyst of me seeking help.
Like I think that's one of the most powerful experiences, to be fully seen and heard in, maybe not your most, like your best state when you're really vulnerable, and to have that happen for the first time, and then it was received with kindness and openness and love. It's like, wow, that's life changing. It opens up a whole new range of possibilities of what life can be like, when people show up for you like that.
Yeah, and I think so for me is that what I learned in that moment is that there was always people that be willing to have me seen, but I have to first also see it for myself. I have to
Mm,
allow that. I have to open it and give that them the opportunities to do that for me.
yeah.
And I think so when it was that moment, it was still harder for me to ask for help. But now that someone was able to get into my life, I was able to trust the process a lot more.
Mm,
And that's when I started really facing um, those demons that I had of worthlessness and my body image. And what was really sad at this time is that I will refuse to take any photos because I didn't like the way I saw myself.
mm,
Um, and it was very few photos I had, and I every single time someone would take a photo, I would have them not show me it. So I think so that was my biggest regret. If I had a regret of anything, is that not able to take photos because not having that type of recollection that other people do have, regardless how you
yeah.
feel.
Yeah, I think it's so funny that you bring this up because I've never met anybody else who had that experience, because I've had that experience too. After I had gone through a sexual trauma in college, I had gained about 85 pounds in just kind of trying, I just didn't want to be seen. And so for me, that was like my camouflage. And during this time, I just hated my body. I hated myself. I was so depressed and so self loathing and so far away from my soul and from love and from any kind of compassion. I did not take photos either. I was horrified. I would like step away. I would go to a different room if there was like a family event. My mom would have to like drag me into the photo, and then like I wouldn't look at it. And I didn't want to see it, even if she would send it to me and it looks fine. I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, like what was I seeing in myself that I just like couldn't stand just to like look at myself. It's sad, but I totally, totally can relate to that. And I think, you know, anybody who's going through a really, really rough emotional time, I think it's hard to look at ourselves because for me, it felt like I might break if I really
Hmm.
saw myself, if I really saw what I was feeling inside, like if I looked at myself in the eyes, like I would not recover from that. And that was scary as fuck. So I just like avoided mirrors and I avoided photos. And
Exactly.
that sucks because, you know, we are robbed of kind of those physical, tangible memories, although we do have our own memories and maybe they're not great. And I'm sure there's some good ones in there from that time. But, you know, it's sad to know that we really, you know, don't have those photos at all. And we kind of were not in a place where we really didn't want to be seen. It's sad.
And yeah, I totally agree. And what I've noticed in from that experience is that I think I was trying to run away from myself. And what I was doing
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yep. Yes.
right? And what I ended up was doing is that I knew that I kind of around myself, but I knew if somehow in my mind was like, if I don't look at myself in the photos, if I don't look at myself in the mirror or whatever, then I'm basically avoiding myself having that uncomfortable conversation with myself.
Yeah, you
And
don't have
ever
to
since,
acknowledge that like you don't have to acknowledge that anything is wrong because you can like hide from yourself.
yeah, and at that point, I was just I think it really robbed me the opportunity of being present in any situation, because all I was doing was making sure that I mentally was not seeing myself, that
Mm-hmm.
I was not I didn't go to my friends' places, I didn't hang out with anybody, and I blamed it a lot on my introvertness. But if everybody meets me, I generally love people. In crowds, not so much, but like in individual settings or in like in a small group, I do, because I feel like it's such a fun experience to meet people. But I think at that time I brought myself for the opportunity of getting to know beautiful human beings at that time.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I can relate. I can relate. And I think like if any I think whoever's listening, I think we have a lot of people in the audience who can relate to this as well. So what made you like was there a moment that you can recall or an event or did it just happen gradually where you know you wanted to start looking in the mirror where you wanted to start facing this stuff was there like a point where you're like "Ugh, I have to like for me I remember in my mid 20s I've talked about this before I think like I hit like such a low point in my mental health and I was suicidal and that was when I like really know that was my moment when I was like okay, like I I either have to figure this shit out or like it's going to end badly for me. And that's when I kind of decided, okay, time to look in the mirror. Like, did you have any kind of moment like that?
Yes, I actually had two significant moments. The first moment was um, I lost my sister like around 4 or 5 years ago, and I think that really broke me because it was probably the hardest pain that I ever had to go through. But I myself felt like I wasn't at the standard that I wanted to be for my sister to see me in that way. And so I
Mm.
went into a deeper depression in that way. But what really transformed everything was last year around my birthday, June 21st. um, uh, I went to New Zealand by myself. And
Oh, the
when I
New
went to,
Zealand trip. Oh my God. This is like the
yeah,
best, you guys. I have like a newfound absolute love for New Zealand after hearing about your experience. So, yes, what happened in New Zealand?
yeah, I will tell you, New Zealand has always been uh, a place that to me has meant a lot because it was a place that I always wanted to visit since I was in high school. I did a journalism piece on it, and I got really interested in this. But um, I made a commitment to myself, and I have a habit of doing this stuff for myself. And if I am all in, I'll do whatever it takes to go all in. I got my passport. I bought the tickets. I didn't tell anybody, and I said I'm going to go alone. I'm no longer waiting for anybody to say they're going to come with me or not. And,
Yes.
and I did it for my gift for myself for finishing my master's program. And um, I was and around that time I was a workaholic. I was I was working up to the very day of um, my trip, and I was nonstop working. And I came from my job to my place to get my bags, and literally went to New Zealand, and I went to LAX, which is horrible, by the way. And
LAX is, well, I mean, nowadays I feel like it's like dead, but guys, like in the height, LAX is it's a nightmare.
yes, and I remember vividly like The workers were fighting with each other. People were bumping into each other. It was such a horrible experience. And then 12 hours later, I arrived to New Zealand. And in my very first day, I was so emotionally exhausted because I did not sleep for almost around 36 hours. And I was crying. And I told myself, like, I'm so homesick. I'm so this. I don't know what I'm doing. What was I thinking? And every negative thing that I was telling myself was at this point. And I called my dad. My dad is usually an overprotective individual, but he told me, you want this. Go take some rest. And then
Mm.
tomorrow, enjoy it. And so I took a rest and I went to sleep and I woke up and it did wonders for me. And that moment, I realized, wow, I'm in the southern hemisphere by myself, and I just can't imagine I'm doing this. So I'm exploring New Zealand, and there was just one moment that really changed my life. And it's something so small is that I went to go hiking, and there's this trail by Queenstown, New Zealand, which you guys have to visit. And and as I was going, as I was going up to this trail, I was walking. I had all my gear with me. I was going up, and it was as I was going up here, it was so wonderful. There's no predatory animals. It's so peaceful. The people were lovely.
I love how
Uh,
you said there's no predatory animals. Like, don't worry, guys, you are not going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. This is a safe place.
yeah, and there's signs everywhere that says there's no animals.
I love it.
And
I'm good with that, you guys. I'm good with that.
so the safety amount I was loving, but the amount of fresh air. But I think what was um I was really, I didn't think this through. I didn't bring a case of water. I didn't bring anything. I brought just a lot of camera gear. And as I was coming up,
Only the important things like heavy camera gear, no
if it,
water.
yeah, it doesn't happen if
I
you don't
love
take a
it.
picture of it.
No, obviously.
And so I remember coming up, and so New Zealand, the time, the light of day is different because it turns dark a little bit earlier. And so I knew I had probably like another hour and a half left. And it was really high, and I was so exhausted. It's like, well, here's a good view. This is fine. But I was telling myself, I'll be content with this. But I could tell everybody that I made it to the mountaintop. And the mountaintop is called the Basket of Dreams. It's a big old basket. And
I love
um
that.
and I was telling myself, no one has to know. Like, you didn't, you could just say you went hiking, you're not lying and anything. And I was selling myself short, like I always do. And there was a moment where just like, no, I have to do this. I have to do this. And then someone came down, and the moment I was thinking that, someone came down and said, hey, you have like roughly around 6 minutes left. Do you want me to join you? I was like, yeah, okay. And at this time, and it's like, and then people were coming down, it's like telling me, good job, good job. And it was so nice. It was so humbling. And I was like, I'm really tired. It's like, but she's like, you're doing it. You're doing it. And I
That's
don't know
so
where this,
nice.
yeah, I didn't know where this angel came from. And as I made it to the basket of dreams, I literally just like almost burst into tears, and I literally hugged the person. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry for everything, but like, this means a lot.
Oh my
And it's
God. So
like,
wait,
no,
this stranger just like walked you up this mountain. Like,
yes.
saw that you were struggling and was like, hey, like I'll walk with you, I'll cheer you on. That is amazing.
Yeah. And it that person was not the only one, and there's just like a bunch of good, wholesome people. And
Oh,
once I was up there, there was different people from foreigners, and they made it up there, and we all took pictures there. And it was a moment where I saw the view, and it was so beautiful because we always talk about these mountaintop moments, and I always talk to my clients that um, we always strive to have that mountaintop moments, but I think that sometimes
mm.
we forget to acknowledge the journey that took us to that mountaintop. The mountaintop is beautiful, but there's nothing more beautiful than the journey that took you
Oh, yes. Yes, preach.
there. And one of my things is that what I noticed with a lot of people is that a lot of people wants to be healed but don't want to do the healing. But the beautiful part of the healing is the actual healing.
Yeah, yeah. And that it's like it's painful, but it's also like the depth of the pain kind of you also experience a deeper almost love that gets to blossom because of the pain that you experience going through this, healing and self-awakening. But yeah, everybody, including myself, I think we'd love to all wake up and be like, oh my God, I feel amazing. All my trauma's gone. But like, no, it really does mean, going through a journey that can be sometimes a little bit painful, and being able to find, hindsight's 2020 as well. It's a little bit easier to do this when you're not in the middle of it and you're like crying every day and like having breakdowns, but finding the beauty in the cracking open of your soul. It's like, that is beautiful. Every step that you take, every moment that you feel like you've had a setback and you choose to continue showing up, every time that you experience a downward turn and you use your tools and you pick yourself back up, like that is beautiful. And it's you showing yourself that you believe in what you're doing, you believe in your power, and you believe that you deserve more and to be happy and to be whole. And giving yourself, Danny, that opportunity, like to travel alone, to go do something you've always wanted to do, to open up and crack open to another, like, I don't know, another evolution of your being in this trip. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a saying, and I think I said the same to you all the time, is that you can only experience joy to the depth that you're willing to experience pain because they come from the same well.
Hell yeah. Say that again,
And
one more time.
you can only experience joy to the depth that you're willing to experience pain
I'm going
because
to
they come
quote
from the
that.
same well.
Yes, because they come from the same well. They do. They do, guys. They do.
And I think for that moment where it's like I took every negative thought that I ever had in myself, and I showed up for myself. And I showed up, and I think that that moment meant way more than that a person envisioned that moment would mean to me, because it's not about the hike itself. It's about me going through this journey of my own and realizing that I was no longer at the land that I had all these bad experiences with. And for some reason, that even though I'm nowhere near LA, that I still carry a lot of the LA thoughts. And
Mm.
so I realized, well, I need to stop this. I need to treat myself better. I need to really know that it's okay to be me. And once I came down, I started talking to different locals, not locals.
Locals with an L, not crazy people.
Yeah, and it was interesting is like I met someone who uh, who was from Ontario, Canada, and I was like, oh, I also grew up in Ontario, California. How ironic. And it's like, well, I was really raised in Pomona. And it's like I was raised in Pomona, and so like we came to the, so like, isn't it funny how we made it out of out of that city? Because that city, it's always gonna be a hometown for me, but like that city brought me a lot of pain. And even though I
Mm.
don't associate that city with that pain anymore, it's still a reminder of it. And so this whole journey, I started really exploring myself, because no one that I knew actually went on a solo packing trip. This is my first trip I ever done ever, and it was by myself, and I paid for it. I did it all on my own, and I realized that I showed up for myself in a way that I never showed up for myself ever. And and this is a time
Wow.
where every person that started meeting up from there on, I wanted it to be a meaningful experience.
Mm.
And I wanted to take my story, I want to take my experiences, because there's something that I believe in, there's something that's probably the center of my own practice, is paying it forward.
Yeah,
And
pay
paying
it forward.
Yeah, and essentially for me, what that means is that you take your healing, your transformation, your wholeness, and you share it, because
Yes.
our healing is not our own healing, because when we do our own healing, it heals others.
Hmm.
Just like hurt people, heal people.
Fuck yeah, guys. Do you hear that? Healed people heal people 100%. Just by nature of you walking around in your healed state, you will help other people find their healing too, whether they know you or they're just bumping into you.
Mhm.
Wow.
I think so. I came to a point where I'm doing a lot better for myself. For every single time, I'm really I do a really good job in tackling cognitive distortions.
Mm,
And for me, every single time that I think something negative of myself, I had to counteract it with something positive.
I love that.
And
That's a good idea for listeners too. Like if you think a negative thought about yourself, you catch yourself and then give yourself a counteractive positive thought. So, like, what's some examples of that?
um, like so lately, I've been working out, and I'm doing it not for any goal in mind, but doing it for my own personal health, and just, it's good for your mental health and everything. But for for example, I'll wake up and just like, you don't have the energy, you're just lazy, you're never gonna be anything. And
Mm,
so I was like, okay. So I get up, and I get up at 6:30 in the morning to do my workout, and I push myself harder, and I don't stop until until I'm happy with myself. And that means where I just like, I stop the negative and I start talking about myself in positive.
mm,
And this process would be like, oh, you're so tired, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna last long. And as I'm working out, I was like, wow, you're doing a good job, you're doing it, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you. I'm content. I finished my workout. And when you're done, it's just like, wow, I did that. What I did,
wow.
that. And so
Love it.
for me, that's an example. And then sometimes for me, it's like when you go shopping, find your colors, find an outfit that really makes you feel good.
Yes, it's so empowering to find clothing that makes you feel so like good and strong and beautiful and in your highest self, whatever that means. I actually was talking to a client about this the other day that I'm not like really big into fashion. I'm not like someone who follows trends. I just like, I honestly spend most of my money on like really good meals. Like I love really good food.
I agree.
Right?
I
Like
agree.
activities and food is like where all my money, and travel is like where all my money goes. But when I actually started being very intentional about embodying my highest self, my light leader, who I was stepping into and becoming the woman I really wanted to be, my whole wardrobe changed because I wanted my outside to match my inside. I wanted to feel really aligned. And so all of a sudden I'm wearing like Buddha pants and, these specific kinds of t-shirts and clothing from certain companies that are very ethical and sustainable. And, it's funny how, your clothing, when you wear something that really reflects who you are at your soul level, I just feel so lit up and so empowered. And then when I watch you and your Instagram, oh my God, you are so good at posing his pictures. You guys are so fire. Like, go check them out. I always like, I get such a rush of like confidence just looking at your photos. So we can all tell that you love what you're wearing.
Yeah, and which is interesting, and I was actually thinking about this the other day, because I came from not posting anything to myself, and if you look in my earlier Instagram, it showed just pictures of outside or flowers or anything, and I ended up not taking photos of myself. But then I made a decision that no matter what state I am in, no matter what body type I am in, no matter how it is, I have to take photos of myself, and I do it. Um, I post it, and I sometimes I post photos that I might not feel too happy about, but I put it there anyways because my initial thought might not be, oh, I look good, but when I look back, it's just like, wow, I did look good. And
Yeah,
and for,
yeah.
and for me, my whole journey in my Instagram, I want to put out that, um, even though I may not feel that great about myself at that moment, I'm still gonna put myself out there because I still want to be seen, and
Mm,
not just by anybody else but myself, and to reflect on myself at that given day and that given
mm,
time. And so, um, now I'm at a point where I ended up taking photography for myself, and I ended up appreciating the camera. And for every post that you see me post, I have 100 photos that are not my favorite, but I still keep them in my
mm.
phone. I don't delete them because I think so those I have to learn to appreciate the photos that I don't really like,
Yeah.
because it just shows me that I'm not perfect, and I just to show myself that I love myself no matter what state I am in.
Oh, I love that. So much self love, so much self love. And it's a practice. I think people have this idea that one day they're going to wake up after doing, you know, whatever healing work, and they're going to like love themselves unconditionally. And while I can say I love myself unconditionally, it's still a practice of loving myself unconditionally and catching
Yes.
myself in moments where I'm like judging myself, criticizing myself, being hard on myself, you know, talking down to myself. And like those still happen all the time, but it's like the practice of like bringing it back to, okay, like how can I show myself a little bit of grace, a little bit of compassion, in the same way that I treat everyone I love. You know, I think it's funny that we're not taught how to do that from a very early age, excuse me, but you know, it's so necessary for living a life that feels whole.
Yeah. And so what I learned is that um, I have to teach myself this all the time, and I have to remind myself is like the way that I'm talking to myself, would I ever dare talk to any of my friends that way or any individual in that manner? And,
Mm-hmm.
so, and if it's a no, that means I need to stop. That
Yeah.
is something I need to stop. And then when I don't feel good, I have to go to my friends and talk to them and talk to my support team and or do something that makes me feel good. Because that's what's so important nowadays, especially around these times. And showing up for yourself is probably the most important thing you can ever do for yourself. That and give yourself time.
Mm, I love that. And it's something I say a lot to anybody who listens or follows me is show up anyway.
Hmm.
Show up anyway. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be scary. Show up anyway. If you need support to show up, get that support, but show up and show up imperfectly. You know, have an idea of where you want to go, release attachments to how you get there and what that process looks like and the ups and downs. And if you can release attachment and just hold the vision for where you're going, you're going to get there.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I truly believe that everyone has a unique story that they can share and express out to the world. And I think that that story has to be um, true to them and not be looked in kind of made up in a way where just like I want to look good for someone else. I want to put it out for someone else. But people have to put themselves in out there and just like authentically themselves.
Yeah.
We're not we're not always going to be pretty, but we're always going to be great.
Yes. And we are inherently lovable, amazing, special, incredible without having to look a certain way or have a certain job or be with a certain partner or have a certain identity. It's like the way you are right now in this moment, tummy hanging out, making mistakes, trying your best is perfection. That is perfect. And that's exactly what you need to be doing.
Yeah, and you said something right now where it's interesting because there's always a body part. I always feel like everyone tackles in themselves. Like I don't like my stomach. I don't like my my love handles, whatever it is. And I think so. This is a journey where just like appreciate it anyways.
Yes,
Appreciate
yes.
appreciate yourself. Appreciate your scars. Appreciate your stretch marks. Appreciate your skin tone. Because I got
Mhm.
bullied. I got bullied so much for my skin tone because I'm a Mexican and Salvadorian, and I was told I was not dark enough. I was not. I didn't. Um, that my I have a farmer's tan. They're always making jokes about my skin, and
Yeah.
I always hated it. But now I look at myself as just like I could really use a tan right now, but you know what? I love myself anyways. You know, I love it. You
Yeah.
know, this imperfections that I have is something that they're clearly me. Yeah, you know.
Mm. Yeah, and that's
And
something, it's interesting that you said that too, because I actually have had this conversation multiple times with friends and colleagues of mine who are biracial, who are light skinned, like white passing, like I am. I'm a very white passing Cuban American person. Um, there is this interesting, and everybody seems to be repeating the same stories of like, there's also this kind of, you know, where do I fit in, and am I worthy of calling myself Cuban? You know, for me, am I allowed to call myself Hispanic or Latina, or, you know, be a part of that community if I'm so light skinned and white passing, you know, or do I, if I fit in as white but I don't feel white and I certainly don't identify with white, like 100% through and through. So, you know, it's interesting that there's also this, for, you know, for some people, some of us, like these issues of like worthiness around belonging, around identity, and around like identifying with cultures, and then also with, privilege.
Yeah, and I think so for me, like my siblings have been their darker skin. Um and they always have this kind of athletic build. They can literally not eat and they still feel they're skinny as hell. And I was just like, why wasn't I born this way? And I always and then I always have to watch what I eat. I always have to do everything. And but the thing at the end of the day is that out of all of us, I am the most healthiest.
Mm,
Out of all the one is that I really take focus and appreciate that every little hard work that I do, because everything that I do is for a purpose.
mm,
And no longer it's about for someone else, it's about myself. And for me, it's just like, yeah, I may not be dark enough or light enough or whatever it is. I'm Latino to the end, Latino gang all the way, and appreciate my culture. I love my culture. I will always ride or die for my culture, no matter.
yes.
But I will also show up for every other culture that needs it too. And I think
Yeah,
so.
that's how I
I think so.
feel.
I think so. For me, the unity part is like I need to unite myself with myself, and
Mm-hmm.
also be there for other people. And I think so. For me, just I'm coming into this world, into people's lives imperfect,
Yeah.
and just being me.
And layered and complex, and we don't just belong to one culture, we belong to many. And it's not just racial culture, but cultures like groups or organizations or like systems that you're a part of that don't necessarily have to do with race, sexual identity, gender identity, who what I'm part of the scuba diving culture because I love scuba diving, and it's like I'm part of that group of people. So it's we belong to so many, and it's we have to, at the end of the day, part of the self-love journey, part of the self-healing journey, if you're someone who is kind of experiencing some of the stuff we're talking about, is carving a space out for yourself, not waiting for someone to invite you into whatever identity that you feel in your soul you identify with. It's part of who you are. Like, that lives within you. You get to decide where you belong, and you can create that spot that's just exclusively for you, specific to
Mhm.
who you are and where you come from. And you will always have a place in the world, and you will always have people who will understand you. It's just about finding them.
And I totally agree. And I think so. In here's my input for men out there who want to, just be seen and heard. And like, I invite you to come in and like we'll talk. And it's not about any power differences. It's not about this toxic masculinity or whatever's going through. Because I invite every man out there, um, or whoever identifies as men, to really put their give your chance to themselves and put yourself out there. And
Yeah.
it's time for us to talk about our healing. It's time for us to talk about the stuff that we went through, and it's also the time for us to start showing up for each other, as well as for our fellow peers as well. And I think so. We're in a crazy time where a lot of things are happening right now, and I think it's no better time than now to really stand alongside each other.
Yes, there's so much healing to do. And I think that there aren't enough spaces like you're providing right now. I mean, they're more popping up for men to really come and feel safe exploring these different parts of themselves and their pain and their trauma in a safe space. And that's happening more and more. But I don't know, growing up, that did not exist. I definitely did not see that. So it gives me really a lot of hope that you are out there doing this work. And you guys, for those of you who are light leaders listening, who are, on whatever part of your journey you're on, Danny is an incredible example of what you can create from your experience. And I know that if you're listening, you've probably gone through your own mental health journey, self-awakening journey, you're cracking open, you're, looking at your shadows and working through so much. And even after going through so much, Danny, you still went through this journey. You still faced what you needed to face. You still gave that gift to yourself so that now you can stand up and say, yeah, you know what? I went through the self-healing process, and now I can take you through it as well. And behind that, you have degrees, which is like awesome. I mean, you actually went to school and you're a practicing clinical therapist, and you're going to be a psychiatrist or psychologist, excuse me. Um, And it's just beautiful. So you guys, if you are one of my amazing, incredible, conscious men who's listening to this right now and you haven't found someone you like working with, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking out Danny and his practice, Halcyon Days coaching. It is incredible what you are providing. And there's no time like the present to do this work, because as soon as you're done, you can move on with your life.
Exactly, but don't forget that for every experiences that you experience, and remember all the lessons you learn will pay forward, pay
Pay it
forward, pay
forward.
forward. You know,
Mm-hmm.
our journey, our healing will be the healing of others.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Danny, thank you so much for being here and for being so open and being such a mirror, such an example of what it means to be a whole, conscious, self-healing gentleman in this world. I'm just so glad, and I love having you as a friend. I'm so glad the universe put us together. There are only 4 people in our psychology doctoral program, by the way, guys. There are 4 people, and you're listening to 2 of them right now. So yeah, it's really amazing. And I hope you guys can take away, if anything, that, the self-healing journey is rough, but it's the most beautiful journey you'll ever go through. And to hang in there, and if you need support, to contact someone who you really vibe with, and get someone to show you whatever you need to help you get through this with the most, sanity as possible, because it is difficult. And in terms of Danny, where can we find you on social media, and how can we work with you?
Well, you can find me at Halcyon Days Coaching on Instagram and www.halcyondayscoaching.com. That also has a link for my Instagram as well. You can find me there.
Awesome. And I actually meant to do this at the beginning, but I just got so excited to jump in. I usually ask right away, and I hope this isn't putting you on the spot, but what makes you feel like your most light leader self?
Um, for me, I feel like my authenticity, um, the fact that of always having that growth mindset, you know,
Mm,
and for me is that I always find myself to better myself every single day, because every single day is an opportunity for us to get better and do better and be better, not only for ourselves but for someone else. And I think so.
mm.
I always emphasize for someone else, because once we do the work, we change, and that change exudes us naturally by not even have to do anything,
Yeah,
just being our normal
it
self.
just radiates off of you.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that positivity, and I believe that we all have the capacity to change the world.
Oh, me
I
too.
just,
Yes. Yes.
but if if we pay forward and we put it out there, what's the worst that can happen to us?
Yeah.
Have it thrown back at us, the positivity. That's good.
I love when positivity is thrown back at me. Guys, throw me positivity all day long. I'll take it. I know, what's the worst that could happen, and then the pain of ignoring what the work that you need to do doesn't make it go away. And it makes it worse, and it lasts longer. So, I just say go through it, like go through your self-awakening journey, crack open, check the little corners of your mind and your soul and your spirit, and see where you might be needing a tune up, and don't be afraid to go there. um, Even if it seems really scary or daunting, I promise you can get through it, because you have so far survived 100% of your worst days. So amazing. Thank you so much, Danny, for being here. You guys, I will drop his information at the bottom of the podcast notes, so you can find him. He's currently taking one-to-one clients, working with anyone who identifies as a man and wants to work on, what do they want to work on?
Anxieties, tackling anxiety, stress, or wanting to start doing something for themselves or showing up for themselves. And you might have that great job. You might have all the um, material things for you, but if you're not showing up for yourself, and that's how it can help you out.
Yes. So guys, show up for yourself. Give Danny a call. He is like triple million stamp of approval from the OM team. He is amazing, trauma informed, obviously, and will give you just an incredible experience. And he's just such a dear friend of mine. Thank you for your time and your energy and your vulnerability. And I will see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of the Conscious Leadership Podcast. I am so excited that you're here and that we are growing together. If there was anything that you took away from today's episode, I would love to hear about it. Take a screenshot, tag me with what you took away, and we will repost you. And if you are interested in leaving us a review on iTunes, we are going to give you a free copy of my Subconscious Reprogramming Workbook. It is an incredible workbook that helps you work through all of the deep programming that happened during childhood that might be holding you back in your life today. So super valuable. This is a $75 workbook. I am willing to just send it to you for free because I would love to hear your feedback on iTunes reviews. So shoot us a review, take a screenshot, and DM us with a screenshot of your review, and we will send you a free copy. The Light Leader community calls are also up and running. I'm so excited to be providing a completely free space for all of you guys to come connect, learn, grow, and step into your light leadership. These calls are every other Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and I will be dropping the Zoom link in my emails for my email list. So if you are not already on the email list, head on over to my page at OM_therapy_coaching on Instagram and click the link in my bio to sign up for the email list. You will be on the list for all of these community calls. You can pop in whenever you'd like, ask us questions, and we'll also be providing trainings to help you do all the deep inner work to step into your leadership and also the practical stuff to help you set up a business. It's going to be amazing. So come join us for that. The first call is going to be this Thursday, August 20th, and every other Thursday moving forward. And lastly, we have the OLA Ignite program. Yes! This is going to be launching its second round 2.0 coming up September 1st. So September 1st, we're opening the doors for enrollment. And October 1st, we begin the next round. So I'm super excited. All of my light leaders who went through this round just found tremendous success, financial freedom, personal freedom, confidence, and they're just changing the world in such unique ways that are so aligned with who they are as human beings and as soul leaders that it's just amazing to watch it happen. And I'm just so excited to provide this container and support for you. There are going to be guest coaches, OM-specific co-coaches, me, a 12-week online course, group calls twice a month, one-to-one call support, and it's just a constant hype up. So come join us. If you are a female light leader, I am calling on you to join our community. So we launch enrollment September 1st. Keep an eye out and we will keep you updated with all the latest. Thank you again for joining me. I am so happy to connect with you, and keep coming back and letting your powerful light leader shine. We love you, we see you, we need you, and we honor you.